Before we begin today's story, take just a second to support the channel. If stories about real emotions, quiet life changes, second chances, and the moments that reshape who we are speak to you, then you're exactly where you belong. So if you enjoy thoughtful stories like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel because every story here is inspired by experiences that many people go through, but very few talk about openly. Moments of loneliness, moments of reflection, moments when life changes direction without warning. And sometimes those moments begin in the most ordinary ways. So now let's begin. Emily had always believed that when life truly changed, it would happen loudly. She imagined dramatic conversations, important decisions made in the middle of emotional arguments, moments where everything suddenly shifted in a way that no one could ignore. That's what she believed when she was younger. But life had slowly taught her something very different. The biggest turning points rarely arrive with noise. Instead, they slip quietly into everyday moments. A casual conversation, a small decision, a normal afternoon that seems completely unimportant at the time. And yet somehow those small moments quietly reshape everything. On that warm Saturday afternoon in late spring, Emily believed she was simply deciding what to wear. Nothing more, just an ordinary choice. But sometimes the smallest decisions quietly begin the biggest changes. Sunlight poured through the tall windows of Emily's suburban home in Oregon, spreading warm golden light across the hardwood floors. Outside, the neighborhood felt peaceful and calm. A soft breeze rustled the leaves of the large maple tree in her front yard. Somewhere nearby, birds chirped softly, filling the quiet air with gentle sounds of life continuing as usual. It was the kind of afternoon most people would call perfect. But inside the house, something felt different. The silence inside Emily's home wasn't the peaceful kind. It was the heavy kind. The kind of silence that reminds you how empty a space can feel. The kind that echoes slightly when you walk through a hallway. The kind that makes a house feel larger than it really is. Emily stood in front of the mirror in her bedroom longer than she normally would. She studied her reflection carefully. Her expression carried a quiet mixture of curiosity and uncertainty, almost like she was looking at someone familiar, but slightly changed. At 38 years old, Emily sometimes felt like she was still trying to recognize herself again. Life had a strange way of changing people slowly, not all at once, but gradually, quietly over time until one day you pause long enough to realize something inside you is no longer the same. She adjusted the hem of her navy blue skirt, smoothing the fabric gently with her hands. The skirt wasn't flashy. It wasn't bold, but it was slightly shorter than anything she had worn in years. Her fingers lingered there for a moment, almost as if she were questioning her own decision. She could still change. It would be easy. All she had to do was walk back to the closet and pick something safer, something familiar, something comfortable, something that allowed her to quietly blend into the background the way she had grown used to doing. For a brief moment, she considered it. But instead, Emily straightened her shoulders. The skirt stayed. She paired it with a soft white blouse that draped neatly across her shoulders. The outfit itself was simple, elegant without trying too hard, clean, quietly confident. She slipped into a pair of low heels that completed the look. Nothing about the outfit demanded attention, but there was something different about it, something intentional. And that alone made it feel unfamiliar because for the first time in a long time, Emily wasn't dressing to disappear. She wasn't dressing to blend into the background of her own life. Today, she was dressing for herself. 2 years earlier, her marriage had ended, not with screaming arguments, not with betrayal, not with the dramatic explosions people often imagine when relationships collapse. Instead, it ended quietly, slowly, like a candle burning lower and lower until the final flicker finally fades. After more than 10 years together, Emily and her husband had simply grown tired. Not angry, just tired. Daily responsibilities piled up. Work pressure increased. Conversations became shorter. Silences became longer. The distance between them slowly grew even while they lived in the same house. At first, neither of them noticed. Then they noticed but ignored it. Then eventually they tried to fix it. They had long conversations. They promised to try harder. They attempted to bring back the warmth they once shared. But sometimes love alone isn't enough to keep two people moving in the same direction. Eventually, they both reached the same quiet realization. They had become strangers living in the same life. And so the marriage ended not with anger, just acceptance. After the divorce, the house remained exactly the same. The furniture stayed where it had always been. The photographs still hung on the walls. The kitchen still smelled like coffee every morning. But something important was gone. The warmth, the laughter, the shared routines that once filled the rooms with energy. First, the laughter disappeared. Then the conversations, then the simple comfort of knowing someone truly saw you. The house hadn't changed, but the life inside it had. Most days after the divorce felt strangely mechanical. Emily woke up early. She made coffee. She went to work. She answered emails. She attended meetings. She paid bills. She smiled politely when conversations required it. From the outside, her life appeared completely normal, stable, organized, predictable. But inside, something had shifted, something quieter, something harder to explain. Her friends still cared about her. Of course they did. But their lives were busy. Families, children, careers, responsibilities that filled every corner of their schedules. Dinners together became rare. Long conversations became shorter. And spontaneous visits slowly disappeared. No one intended to leave her behind. Life simply kept moving forward. And sometimes people drift apart without even realizing it. But today felt slightly different. Earlier that morning, Emily's phone buzzed with a message from her closest friend, Laura. The message was simple. "Hey, I'll stop by later with Jason to grab those documents you borrowed." Emily had smiled when she read it. Laura had always been one of the few steady constants in her life. Through difficult years, through the quiet struggles in her marriage, through the painful months after the divorce, Laura had remained supportive, loyal, reliable. Jason had always been part of that friendship too, but mostly in the background. Emily had known him since he was a child. She remembered birthday parties with balloons and loud laughter. She remembered scraped knees and playground arguments, school plays, soccer games, awkward teenage years where Jason barely spoke more than a few words at a time. In her mind, those memories had frozen him in place. She hadn't stopped to think about the simple reality that time had continued moving forward for him as well. With one final glance in the mirror, Emily brushed her hair gently behind her ear. Then she took a slow breath and headed downstairs. In the kitchen, she began preparing drinks without really thinking about why. She placed 3 glasses neatly on the counter. She filled a pitcher with lemonade, then dropped a few ice cubes inside. The ice clinked softly against the glass as she poured. For a moment, she noticed something strange. Her hands trembled slightly. Emily paused and frowned. "Why am I nervous?" she murmured quietly to herself. It didn't make sense. This wasn't a date. She wasn't meeting strangers. It was just Laura, just Jason. And yet, something about the afternoon carried a feeling she couldn't quite explain. Before she could think about it any longer, the doorbell rang. Emily inhaled slowly. She smoothed her skirt one more time, then walked toward the front door. When she opened it, Laura stood there first. Her familiar bright smile instantly filled the doorway with warmth. "Hey," Laura said cheerfully as she stepped inside. "Thanks again for letting me stop by." "Of course," Emily replied with a warm smile. Then her eyes shifted slightly. Jason stood just behind his mother. And for a brief moment, Emily didn't recognize him. He was taller than she remembered, much taller. His shoulders were broader. His posture relaxed but confident. His dark hair was neatly styled. And the awkward teenage uncertainty she remembered had been replaced by something calmer, something more self-assured. He wasn't a boy anymore. He was a man. Their eyes met briefly. Jason's gaze flickered downward for just a second, instinctively noticing her outfit before returning quickly to her face. The movement was subtle, almost invisible, but Emily noticed it. "Hi, Jason," she said calmly. "Emily Era." Then he cleared his throat slightly. "You look nice." The compliment was simple but sincere. Emily felt warmth rise to her cheeks. "Thank you," she replied softly. Laura, completely unaware of the quiet moment that had just passed between them, continued chatting as they moved toward the living room. Jason sat down on the couch, resting his hands neatly on his knees while listening to the conversation. Emily took a seat across from them. Out of habit, she crossed her legs slightly and once again she noticed Jason glance away quickly, not staring, avoiding the small detail lingered quietly in her thoughts. Laura continued talking about work frustrations, office politics, and the chaos of managing a demanding team. Emily nodded occasionally, offering small responses when needed. But beneath the normal conversation, something subtle had shifted in the room. Nothing inappropriate had happened, nothing uncomfortable, and yet there was a strange awareness in the air. After a few minutes, Laura's phone buzzed. She glanced down and frowned. "Oh no, I completely forgot. I need to call my boss." She stood up and gestured toward the front door. "I'll just step outside for a minute." Then she turned to Jason. "Can you grab those papers from Emily while I'm gone?" Jason nodded casually. "Yeah, sure, Mom." And just like that, for the first time that afternoon, Emily and Jason were left alone in the room.